Shalom, shalom. Right, it's Brother Shalom coming at you with these precepts and another cold cut. First and foremost, giving all honor and all glory to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shah. Yahweh being the name of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Shah being the name of his only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly called Jesus Christ. Right, so I entitled this cold cut, Recall Your Steps. Right, recall your steps. We come into this truth, and over time, you might get complacent, or things might get stagnant, and you start to, forget the stuff that you went through that got you in this truth, right? And you can't do that. You got to remember and recall and keep that flame going in these last days, right? So I'm gonna kick it off. This is Romans chapter 11 and verse number 1. It says, "I say then, have God cast away his people? God forbid, for I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin." Right? The Most High didn't cast away his people. Verse 2, the Most High have not cast away his people, which he foreknew. Right? What ye not what the scripture saith of Elias, how he maketh intercession to the Most High against Israel, right? Saying, so the Most High never did away with his chosen people, right? And so if you know that you're of this chosen seed line, this chosen lineage, hey, there's certain ways you got to walk, right? And in your walk, you may have certain family members, you may have certain friends that may say things that go against what you're doing in this walk. And while these things are happening, you got to remember to keep the Most High in your mind. You got to remember to keep the Lord first, right, through everything, right? So this is Psalms chapter 109, and I'm going to start at verse number 2. Psalms 109 and 2, the Lord says, "For the mouth of the wicked and the mouth of the deceitful are open against me. They have spoken against me with a lying tongue. They compass me about also with words of hatred and fought against me without a cause." You see that? So, you know, once again, during this so-called holiday season, right? You're not keeping these wicked days that these people done set up, right? You might be fought against, right? Spiritually, shit, you might be fought against physically, right? But with all of that fighting, you got to fight to stay in the spirit, right? And in that fight, the first, the biggest battle is always within yourself. The first and biggest battle is always within yourself. So everything that somebody does or says, or however somebody moves through the spirit, through us, the spirit on the left hand side, it don't always require a reaction. It doesn't always require a response. So, us being Israelites, one of the first battles that we gotta learn to master is within ourselves, right? So now when you dealing with family members, or you dealing with if a brother or sister coming to the truth and they spouse is kind of hesitant, or they didn't come into the truth, or however it worked through the spirit, and you got to know how to move with that wisdom, right? So people are going to come up against you. People are going to say things against you. And when they do, hey, you gotta stick to these precepts. You gotta stick to these scriptures, right? This is Psalms chapter 91 and 1. Right? It says, "He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty." Right? So when you decide to hold your peace when certain things are going on, hey, that's a certain level of maturity. That's a certain level of having self-value, when you don't allow everything to get under your skin, right? When you don't allow everything that, or the spirits that other people are moving in, to get attached unto you, even though you may be around them, right? So these are the things that the spirits and the ways we got to start moving in this life. All right. This is First Peter 2 and 9. All right. First Peter chapter 2 and verse 9. It says, "But ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, and holy nation, a peculiar people, that ye should show forth the praises of him who have called you out of darkness into his marvelous light." Right. So in recalling your steps, you got to remember the things that you were doing. You got to remember, that nigga you used to be in the world. You got to remember, that whore you used to be in the world. You got to remember the wicked things that you used to say and do, the evil jokes that you used to laugh at, right? The violence towards your brother, selling whatever drugs that you might have sold, or being in whatever gang you was in. You got to remember these things so you can Keep yourself in that humble and that meek spirit so that the Most High can deal with you. You're a chosen people. And He called you out of darkness. He called you out of the ways of sin. He called you out of these wicked lifestyles to come into this light. So now that you're in this light, you got to remember that, hey, these promises are only for the Israelites. And I'm a part of the seed. I'm a part of this promised seed coming through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So these are the spirits that we want to keep in our minds, right? As we move. Because watch this. When you go to you get this in Matthew 13 and 17. Matthew 13 and 17, it says, "For verily I say unto you, that many prophets and righteous men have desired to see those things which ye see, and have not seen them, and to hear those things which ye hear, and have not heard them." Man, you understand who you are. You understand a lot of things about the scriptures that the average man and woman don't know, right? I always say, if you get a brother, or if you get a brother that just come into this truth, and you give him 2 years of being diligent and studying the precepts and studying the doctrine, if you get that brother 2 years of studying, right, he could demolish any theologian, any Christian pastor, any of these Muslim dudes, and all of these different religions that step up against the word. A man that's just studied on the milk could devour a lot of these doctrines. And so, that's a honorable thing. The Lord called you out of the darkness into His marvelous light. He called you out of Christianity. He called you out of whatever mysticism and trying to balance your chakras, and what I mean, whatever witchcraft that you might have been into. He called you out of those things. He called you out of those things, and He gave you understanding. You don't have to know that you're an Israelite, right? Any brother that's out there teaching, you don't have to be out there teaching. Any sister that's you know supporting a body through giving alms, or making food on a feast day or a holy day, or just showing up to get the word and just being a light, you know to brothers and sisters out here. The Lord don't need you to do that. He called you to do that. This is an honor. This is the thing that we should take honorably, and something that we should really take joy in, right? Because going back to Deuteronomy 28 and 47, hey, a lot of these curses are on us because we didn't joyfully serve the Most High, right? We didn't serve Him with joyfulness and gladness of heart. So now we got these curses on us. And, you understanding this truth, that's not something that we should be taking lightly in this walk. It's not something we should be taking lightly, right? This is Amos chapter 7. Is that what I want? Amos 7. Con. Amos chapter 7 and verse 14. It says, "Then answered Amos and said to Amaziah, I was no prophet, neither was I a prophet's son, but I was a herdman and a gatherer of sycamore fruit." You see that? So he wasn't a prophet, right? Amos wasn't a prophet, right? He wasn't a son of a prophet, right? And that's how we are. Our fathers, our mothers, our grandmothers and grandfathers wasn't raised in this truth, right? For the most part. So when we come into this thing, hey, we gotta take it running, because you got a lifetime worth of sins behind you. You got a lifetime worth of sins that keep reminding you of who you were, right? So you putting down that old man, you got to walk in this new man. But you can't forget the old man, because you forgetting the old man will give him that space to come back and rise up on you, right? Or that old woman, you give her space to come back and rise up on you, right? And I'm thinking about King David. King David was a shepherd, but the Lord took King David from being a shepherd, right, to the armor bearer, right, to the head of the host of the camp, to the king, right? The Lord called Elisha. He was plowing with oxen, right? Elijah put that mantle on him, and now he out here, prophesying with Elijah, and he got a double portion of the spirit when Elijah was called up. So we've been taken from lowly places, from regular jobs or regular men, and moving in the way of the heathen, to being an Israelite in this truth. That's heavy. And over time, We forget how heavy that is. This is a heavy matter. This is not a light subject. It's not a light thing to know and understand you're Israelite and start keeping these commandments, right? Start walking in these ways, right? But when you start doing that, you'll have that backlash, right? You'll have that backlash. Watch this. Let me get this in Sirach chapter 11 and verse number what I want. Sirach 11. I'm gonna read verse 20. Sirach 11 and 20. It says, "Be steadfast in thy covenant, and be conversant therein, and wax old in thy work." Right? Be steadfast in the covenant. Right? Keep these commandments. Be conversant therein. Speak on the commandments. Speak on the accounts. Speak using wisdom. Right? Speak, and the words that come out your mouth should be holy communication. Right? It says, "And wax old in thy work." Don't let these wicked people, right, that are on the outside, right, their works proven and showing them to be people that are on the outside of the kingdom, right? People that are just walking in the ways of hell and damnation. You can't allow them to get you off your square. You can't allow them to keep you or prevent you from waxing old in your work, right? So whenever you have gainsayers or people that step up and want to go against what you have been taught and what you've been rooted in, and you got to remember these words, you got to remember these precepts, you got to remember the accounts of our forefathers, and you got to remember even for the most, like on the highest level, you got to remember Yahweh Shah, how he was tempted and how he overcame. So you being an Israelite yourself, you gotta overcome, right? You gotta overcome and fight against these temptations. Right, I'm gonna jump down to verse number 30. Sirach 11 and 30. It says, "Like as a partridge taken and kept in a cage, so is the heart of the proud. And like as a spy, watcheth he for thy fall." And so, when you are in this battle, people will step up against you or whatever the case is. You got to make sure you're walking in integrity. Because if you're not walking in integrity, people are watching you. Your family members are watching you. They're watching your Facebook and social media. They're watching what you post on Instagram. They're watching what's on your story. They're watching the videos. They're seeing you and how you move. And you start going against the commandments, or you start falling short, or if you get around them and you start trimming your ways, they're watching, and they'll make fun of you, when you fall, right? Like the parable of the man building a tower. You didn't have sufficient to finish, roughly paraphrasing, and your enemy's going to mock you. So don't give them that opportunity. You walk in your integrity. So when you are at camp, or when it's the Sabbath day and you keeping it holy and you walk in that way, hey, when you're around them, and for whatever reason you're around your family members, you still got to walk in that same way. You got to walk with this. You got to walk with integrity. It says, verse 31, "For he lieth in wait and turneth good into evil, and in things worthy praise." So like it, "And in things worthy praise will lay blame upon thee." Right. So you're doing things that are worthy of praise. You're doing good things, and they'll turn those things into evil because you tell them straight up, "Hey, you can't eat pork," and they look at you like that's evil. Like, how is it evil to not eat a nasty animal? Right? You tell your family members not to eat shrimp, and they look at you like it's evil. How is it evil for you not to eat bottom feeders? You tell them to keep the Sabbath day holy. They want to argue and say you can just, you kind of do what you want. I had a brother at camp. He was telling me he was doing a damn art project or some type of art show on a Sabbath day, but he knew he was an Israelite. And he said that's not his own pleasure. I said, it doesn't matter what or why you're doing it, but you're profaning the Sabbath day. That's a sin punishable by death. But I'm looked at as evil for correcting him and telling him you can't do that on the Sabbath day. Sabbath day is a day of rest. Yeah, I know it's a day of rest. So why are you not resting? Why are you putting in labor? Why are you doing work? Why are you buying and selling on a Sabbath day? Why are you out and about in the midst of a bunch of heathenistic mindset of people? Why? That's off. But I'm looked at as evil for that. You see that? He says, For he lieth in wait and turneth good into evil, and in things worthy praise will lay blame upon thee. Right. So there's a lot of like a balance act. People walking on a tightrope when you're in this truth and you're doing this walk. It's hard to walk in this integrity. Sometimes the old man will creep up on you, right? You might be dealing with your spouse, and a certain debate or argument start getting heated, and you might want to start using words that you used to use in the world, and you got to fight that. You can't do that. The Lord called you away from that, right? You might be out at camp. People start acting carnal and saying certain things and moving in a certain evil spirit and make you want to move in a certain carnal spirit. But you got to fight that. You got to stay in the spirit of the Lord. You got to operate in the fruits of the spirit. You got to mind your tongue. You got to mind your actions. You got to put the Most High's laws first. And sometimes that's hard to do, but it shouldn't be grievous. You should take pleasure in fighting these battles, and every little win that you get, remember that you've came a long way. You've came a long way. You know what I'm saying? And don't take that for granted. Do not take that for granted. You can get this in Matthew chapter 6 and verse 19. Matthew 6 and 19 says, lay not up for yourselves treasures upon the earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. So the things that we do, we got to make sure that we have our minds focused on heavenly things, because the riches of this world have you to go off, right? What good is it for a man to gain the world and lose his soul, roughly paraphrasing? So we got to make sure that we keeping our minds stayed on the Lord, keeping your minds in these accounts of our foremothers and our forefathers, right? So if you're dealing with if you're dealing with your wife, you can use that grace and lead her, with a just balance. You lead her with authority, but you lead her with mercy. You lead her with kindness. You know what I'm saying? You set things straight. You set order in the household, but you lead her righteously, right? As a wife, you don't want to be bucking up against your husband, gainsaying and going back and forth with your husband, right? So these are things that we have grown from, right? Grown from these wicked ways of being bums in the world and being niggas and, like I said, being thoughts and all of these different things. We're Israelites, right? Our women are princesses of the Most High God. Our men, you are kings and princes of the Most High God. So there's a certain way that you have to walk, and it's not like everybody else. The Lord called you. You. If you've been in this truth for a year, you've came a long way. So how much more any brother or sister that's been in this thing 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, 16 years, 17 years, right? You've came a long way. Don't go back, right? Don't be that backsliding heifer like Ephraim, right? And Hosea. Keep these commandments. Keep them as the apple of your eye. Lay up for yourself riches in heaven, right? I'm gonna read verse 21. For and this is Matthew 6 and 21. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So keep your mind stayed on the Most High. Keep your mind focused on the Lord and the things pertaining to His scriptures. And this is Ecclesiastes 9 and 17, right? Because I'll say this: I remember having a conversation with my grandmother, and I'm trying to show her certain things in the Bible, and I was, we all babes in this truth, but I was like a babe coming into this truth, and I'm trying to show her things in the scriptures, bringing out the precept, trying to break it down, and she's combating me the whole way. And it got me to a point where I just stopped and I asked her, you know, do you believe in the Bible? She's like, yeah. I'm like, do you believe that I can teach you or show you anything in the Bible? And she said, no. And I had to just leave it alone. I had to leave it alone, right? But I understand that in her eyes, I'm not a pastor. I'm not an ordained minister. I'm not somebody that the world looks at with a high stature. I'm not TD Jakes. You know what I'm saying? I'm not any of these men that teach all of this wickedness and folly and madness and this prosperity doctrine, right? I'm not one of those guys. So when I speak to her, it's just like whatever. Like I raised you. I changed your diapers. You can't teach me nothing, right? Disregarding the time that I put in, studying, praying, fasting. These things weren't regarded because you know, she doesn't perceive me like that. She doesn't see me like that. So when you read Ecclesiastes chapter 9 and verse 17, it says the words of wise men are heard in quiet more than the cry of him that ruleth among fools. You see that? So these men, they rule among fools, right? They're the blind leading the blind into the ditch. But these brothers and sisters that come into this truth, trying to show you how to walk in the ways of the Most High and uprightness. Hey, these are the teachers that the Lord sent out. These are the prophets back on the earth, right? These are the men and the women that the Lord ordained to be the light unto the Gentiles, right? To be the light unto the rest of the nation, to show our people how to walk and to come back to the Lord. But a lot of our people, hey, they love darkness rather than light, right? Pursuing the John chapter 1. So, hey, no matter what's going on, you let your light shine. You let your light shine. Even if, understanding your value, sometimes you got to walk away from situations or bite your tongue. Hey, you let your light shine, because you letting your light shine is not you always going out to shake the hand. Letting your light shine is not always you being zealous and reading the precepts back to back. You letting your light shine sometimes could be just being quiet when somebody's going against you and just walking away from the situation, right? Let your light shine. Remember where you came from. Remember that path and that dark road that it took to get you to where you are now. All of that praying, all of that crying, all of that fasting, all of that reading and studying and asking people this questions and that question to get to where you are now. Don't let nobody take that from you. The Lord gave you that. That's an experience that nobody can take from you. And for you to take all of that the Most High has put upon you and to just throw it behind your back, it would be folly and madness, right? But this is Proverbs chapter 19 and verse 1. It says, better is the poor that walketh in his integrity than he that is perverse in his lips and is a fool, right? So even if you're looked down upon, you walk in your integrity. Even if you're physically, you don't have a lot of riches, as far as finances or whatever it is, and you're considered poor, and you walk in your integrity, right? No matter what's going on, you walk in these laws, statutes, and the commandments of the Most High. Keep the wisdom, keep knowledge and understanding, keep praying, keep reading, keep fasting, keep studying. Don't let your family members turn you away from the Lord. Don't let them be that devil on your left shoulder, speaking in your ear, telling you sweet nothings to get you out the spirit, right? So with that, I pray this was exhorting. Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shah Barakatham. Shalom, shalom.